Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Aulia Alawiyah, an English department student at Jambi University in 2017. This video is made to requirements my seminar's proposal entitled Students' Perception and Motivation Toward English E-Learning During COVID-19 Pandemic. First of all, let me explain first the chapter 1, Introduction, background of the research. As social beings, humans need a language as a tool of communication. One of the foreign languages that most often used by Indonesians to communicate is English. Fatihah 2014 states that English has become the most widely adopted international language for communication worldwide, because it is a means of communication between native speakers and non-native speakers. The goal is to support various aspects of life, one of which is learning and the field of education. Learning English plays an important role in students' performance, both in knowledge and skills. According to Sang, learning is a process of changing behavior that can last long enough or behave in a certain way in capacity, resulting from practice or other forms of experiences. It is important to know whether students are motivated or not during the learning processes, because motivated students tend to reach higher level in class. In Indonesia, there are still many teaching and learning activities or activities that prioritize face-to-face in classes. However, in the end of December 2019, the COVID-19 pandemic first appeared in the city of Wuhan, China, and began to plague Indonesia in early March 2020. This virus that hit more than 200 countries in the world that has presented its own challenges for institutions education, which requires workers, students, and educators to remain at home, as well as while working, worshiping, and studying at home. This condition certainly requires educational institutions to innovate in the learning process. One of the best choices for conducting online learning in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak is by using the e-learning method, and Rosenberg 2006 state that e-learning is a tool for delivering information and various solutions which aim to improve the performance of individuals and organizations using internet technology. Through e-learning, students can more easily access subject matter anywhere and wider than when studying in school. However, in Indonesia, not all students are familiar with the e-learning system in everyday learning. So it takes time to adapt, and the importance of e-learning as an advanced and developing tool in the world of education is not enough to make students pay full attention to the learning system. Therefore, in this study, the researchers was interested in investigating student perception and motivation toward English e-learning after it was implemented in their education. According to Walkito, perception is a process that is preceded by sensing process, namely the process of receiving stimuli by individuals through sensory organs, are also known as sensory processes. Meanwhile, according to Prihartanta, motivation is a psychological phenomena in the form of an impulse that arises in a person consciously to take an action with a specific purpose. So, in conclusion, by knowing the perception and motivation of students towards this learning method, the teacher will be able to understand students better. And based on the background of the study above, the researcher conduct the research questions that formulated in this research as the following. First, what are students' perception and motivation toward English learning during COVID-19 pandemic? And what are student motivation toward English learning during COVID-19 pandemic? And research objective based on the research statement, this particular study aimed at finding out to describe student perception toward English learning during COVID-19 pandemic. And second, to find out students' motivation toward English e-learning during COVID-19 pandemic. Limitation of the research, this study is focuses to exploring students' perception and motivation of English e-learning during COVID-19 pandemic. And significances of the research, the researcher hopes this research can support and complement previous theories related to the use of e-learning for learning English for students. The researcher hopes e-learning during the COVID-19 pandemic can be used as a learning media for learning English, whereas in a long distance with a face-to-face activity in the classroom, students can use e-learning to learn English content so that the subject matter is not left behind. The researcher also hoped the teacher can use e-learning as an alternative medium for teaching English through teachers without having to face each other directly in the classroom. And also the researcher hopes the teacher can understand the level of student comprehension of the material presented through e-learning through the interpretation of students, whether they are retentions or not. Definition of key terms, there are perception, motivation, e-learning in COVID-19 pandemic. And now we'll continue to chapter 2, review of related literature. This chapter will discuss about perception, motivation, language learning, e-learning, COVID-19, and the several theories related to this research. For the previous research, the researcher used some research and journal article that related to this topic. The first is from ELSA 2014. They conducted research to investigate students' motivations and the effect of e-learning. There were 159 students who participated, and there were 124 questionnaires filled out. And also the second is students' attitudes and perceptions toward the effectiveness of mobile learning by Fahad and 2009. This research study aims to better understand and measure students' attitudes and perceptions of the effectiveness of mobile learning. The survey that has been conducted aims to explore and analyze the crucial factors in overcoming possible obstacles to implementing mobile learning in these institutions. And third, students' perception and motivation of English e-learning by Mulyani 2020. Participants in this research involved 134 students, and researcher test 10 questionnaires with Google Form and 10 interview questionnaires. It can be concluded that there are two perceptions of students related to English e-learning based on this study. There are students' positive perception and students' negative perception. For student positive, they say that learning English online at home is quite good, effective, and flexible. Meanwhile, students' negative perception that learning English online is quite difficult and teacher interaction and response is not good. So those are the previous studies that I use in conducting research. And actually, those findings of the article are different with my research, and there are also differences from the amount of the questionnaire and interview guideline question. This research took 15 questionnaire with different theme and also 15 interview guideline. Last, chapter 3, research method, research design. In the study, the researcher used a mixed method using quantitative and qualitative design with case study approach to investigate how students perceived online learning in class during COVID-19 pandemic in kota at SMP and 11 Kota Jambi. Research site and access. This research will conduct it online because it is predicted that the COVID-19 pandemic will last in a long time, and it do not allow researcher to go directly to the field to conduct the research. The population of this research are 8 grade students at SMP and 11 Kota Jambi, and collecting the data, the researcher made questionnaires and in the form of Google Forms and distributed through a WhatsApp group. And for the interview, the researcher also conducted interview session using Google Meet. And researcher background and biases. Why the researcher took this topic? Because of the condition where the research carried out teaching activities during pre-service. It was seen that the current learning system was much different from the previous learning system. So due to the impact of the pandemic COVID-19, all teaching and learning activities are carried out at home. Because of that, students naturally have their own perception about this. So the researcher interested to conduct the data from the school. And population and sample, as I explained before, the population of this research is 8 grades at SMP and 11 Kota Jambi, and the researcher chose a simple random sampling as the consideration of to take 20% of the population to be the sample. For online survey, I will take 2 classes, 8J and 8K. For interview guideline, I will take 4 students and 2 students of each classes. And for in research instrument, qualitative data, it is interview questions with Google Meet, and quantitative data, questionnaire online survey with using Google Form. And there is also the table of the theory that used to make the questionnaire. And technique of data analysis. For qualitative data analysis, it will do data reduction, data display, and conclusion drawing and verification. For quantitative data analysis, first the researcher ranked the respondents' data based on the questionnaire was collected. Second, the data that has been received is then entered into the research table. Third, in the research table, the researcher calculated the percentage of respondents who were divided into 4 parts, namely strongly agree, disagree, and strongly agree, and it will be analyzed using Excel. For validity, the researcher will do the validity for the questionnaire will using SPSS. And for reliability, this reliability task in this research was tested on other students from a grade in another class who do not complete the next questionnaire. And trustworthiness, after the researcher transcribed the data from the recordings, the researcher showed the transcript to each participant who was interviewed, and to make sure what the researcher transcribed was what they said before. So I think that's all that I can say in my presentation of my proposal. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.